Hey everyone, this is Eric Boland, a professional therapist who helps people with sexual addiction and recovery. My channel here is Sexual Recovery, and I love to help people get free from this troubling issue. Today, we're going to talk about managing triggers or dealing with triggers or what to do when one's tempted. Um, we're going to go back into early Christianity 2,000 years ago. They about 1500 from maybe let's see, 300 or 400 to probably about 700 or 800, those years. They talked about how to deal with this thing, and the internet's great in this regard. We studied and we researched, and there's some books I can recommend, and I'll put them in the link description. And it may surprise us how different it is in dealing with them. And we'll talk about the neurology. So we'll talk about the spiritual side of things as well as the neurology of it all. So managing triggers. Now, those of you who have heard me speak, I'm really not the biggest fan of just trying to manage triggers. I really believe a 12-step program is where it's at. It's systemic, meaning you start to connect with God of your understanding, and you start to apply the 12-step principles, and eventually the disease dies. And I'm a fan of doing the steps as they were meant to be done, which is what it would feel like quicker, like in about 2 to 3 weeks. People got through steps often in a few days, and they had high success rates. It's like baking a cake. It works better if you do it in an hour versus spreading it over a week. So we don't know what we don't know, but if you just go back and look, that's what they did. But there's a time to deal with triggers. And the early Christian church, which the principles are applicable to all of us, really, there's some help there. So we're going to talk about it. They use the word logisme. It looks like logos moi or moi, but in Greek it's logisme. A logismos is an assaultive thought. Specifically, it's a thought image that it's hard to translate in English, but it's a thought that comes to you. And we're going to use something not about lust so that we can learn first about how to deal with that. So see, and I use this with clients all the time, but if they have like a baseball cap, which I really admire and like, it would be just the image of a flash image of me taking it or sneaking it or borrowing it. Okay. That would be an assaultive thought. So there's 5 stages of assaultive thought. So we're going to go through them one by one and talk about it. The other phrase is what they call the descent to sin or ascent to sin, in that we are taking steps towards actually sinning. Sinning is really anything that we do that's blocking us from God's love and power. And there's actual behaviors there as well. So the first stage, and I have a handout on this, which I'll work on. I'm kind of picky. I don't like it as well. So right now we're just going to have you write this down. But the assaultive stage is the initial thought that just pops into your mind. Okay. The next stage, you got that. So assaultive stage. The second stage is the interactive or dialogue stage. I've heard 2 saints talk about both words. So it's interacting with a thought in any way is an interaction. And it begins to couple. We tend to bond with the thought. So in this case, it's like, well, I could take that baseball cap from my friend, and it's not like I'm just borrowing it, or I admire it, or that's cool, and they cost a lot of money. And so any kind of interacting with the thought. Dialogue, I like that word because think dia meaning with, logos meaning with. So it's any words with the thought. Okay. The next level is consent. This is where I consent to let the thought enter my heart. Okay, can you see that here? To enter my heart. And it's kind of like a plan. I can feel it like I'm taking the hat. I've decided, and it's landed in my heart, and I'm really now coveting that hat. Okay. Fourth stage is actually stealing the hat, taking the hat, sneaking the hat. It's where the thought now has taken captive of me, and now I'm behaviorally doing the behavior. And the last stage is passion. And you probably have heard the term, oh, he's such a passionate person, or she did such a passionate job in the play or whatever. But passion here means suffering. So think of Christ's passion. Compassion means to suffer with someone. But passion also has roots of passivity. Like you don't have to think to steal a hat. In fact, you become a thief. You just take hats without any effort. It's just easy to do. It's become a lifestyle. In modern day terms, it would probably be addictive. It's become an addiction, that this is my core problem. Okay. So it's going back to logisme. Like, why are these here? Like, why do we even suffer from these thoughts? Well, there's a couple of reasons. It is a result of the fall. Everybody struggles with them. The holiest of people, the most unholy people have these thoughts. And there's three sources for the early Christian church taught from where thoughts come from. First, ourselves. So there is a time when we actually can just generate our own thought. The other source is from the devil or the dark side or the dark force. And then, of course, a thought can come from God. What we learn is that thinking is really not where it's at. I don't know about you, but I can't think my way out of these temptations or thoughts. And thinking would just be adding more thoughts to the thought. Okay, so interacting would be like debating back and forth. Okay. So they just are. They're just with us. And so that's just a given. No one's going to be thoughtless, so to speak. Eventually, we can connect with God in prayer so much so that we're really not guided by our passions at all. Very few people get there, but a lot of people can make progress. The other thing I want to say about thoughts are that, let's see, my mind is going thoughtless now. The church uses a metaphor like flies. They just fly around. They're just there. And to fight them in the wrong sense of the word, like by, me white knuckling it, makes it worse. Like if I said, don't think about a Mariners baseball hat, don't think of the colors, or don't think of your favorite pizza. It just makes you think about it. So better to take the mind away and focus on something else. This is psychology. In psychology, and even the AA book, which I refer to a lot, I looked over there, that's where it's sitting. What you focus on increases. If you focus on the problem will increase. If you focus on the solution increases. So let's talk, and I don't want to be graphic, but I'm going to talk. Oh, I know another principle about assaultive thoughts. Logisme, they always lead us away from God. And the church is so eloquent on talking about this. The writers say, the thought says, look, God's a forgiving God. He'll forgive you. There's no real danger here. Do this. It's okay. It's like the hat stealing. It's not stealing. It's just like borrowing it. He's like a brother. As soon as you do the deed, then that's different thoughts come to you, like flies attacking you, saying, hey, you think there's hope for you? You think you'll be forgiven? No, no, there's no hope for you. You might as well just give up. You might as well just do it. So they always lead us away. And once you're able to step outside that and examine your own thoughts in mindfulness way, which would be kind of what psychology is teaching, you'll have some power, but not much. This isn't about human power trying to fight such thoughts. And we'll see. So what is the solution? It's going to be surprising. I'm typing it up here. It's funny, I didn't really prepare. We are to ignore the thoughts. Ignore, ignore, ignore. Don't give it a second thought. Don't even let it enter your heart. Don't even let it enter your mind. Just ignore it. Bat it away like a fly. You're so engaged in conversation, a fly comes, you just bat it away. It's when we fixate on it and go, oh no, why am I thinking a thought like that? That's still a dialogue. Then that just doesn't work. Yeah, ignore, ignore, ignore. Now, from a neurological point of view, if you ignore them, it won't take root. That's why I'm not a fan of guys in meetings talking about, well, I need to unload this thought I had. It's like so that everybody else can be tempted. Like it's differing. It's a different thing to just ignore the thought and move ahead towards the goal. I personally think it's best just to move from the initial thought to prayer. Just totally pray. Surrender. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200 like in the Monopoly game. Just ignore and go right to the prayer. And I have a surrendering prayer, which is, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. And mercy means I am surrendered to God. And mercy doesn't mean I'm dangling by a thread and he changes not to snip it today. No, it's love me or whatever I think I need. Not even what I know I need. I just pray and it goes away. Yeah, it's very powerful. They won't stay forever. That's another principle. The temptation won't be there forever. Okay. Here's something other fascinating. Thought that they all taught. The first stage, there's no sin involved. Second stage, no sin involved. None whatsoever. And it's like, are you kidding me? A lot of us feel like, well, I've already sinned. I'm already guilty. No, it's just a thought. It's just knocking on the door saying, please look at me. And the second is, oh my gosh, why am I thinking this thought? Or, wow, that'd be fun to do. Still not consent in one's heart yet. It's where it's consent in one's heart is where sin is birthed. Okay. Now, a sin of the heart, and this is why those that know the Christian Bible and the verse that Jesus talks about, any man who looks upon a woman in his heart has committed adultery in his heart. He's specific about the heart. Consent stage is where it's landed, where the attack is here, where I've invited it in the heart area. It's kind of like planes fly overhead, but I can give it permission to land or not. And I don't give it permission to land, so it's not going to land. And of course, it's a greater sin if I'm actually doing the behavior. And then, of course, I can be so sin sick with this that it's going to take a while. Now, when people start to see me as a coach or a therapist, if it's over state lines, it's coaching, and I do a lot of that. that they're often trapped in this stage. But through spiritual practice, through 12 steps, through working on this, eventually they move out of this to captive, just being captive. And there's other things that if people are interested in Christianity, I would look into Orthodox Christianity, which talks about this, because this is just a tool I'm taking outside the church to offer it to people. But captive stage, eventually it's just we have only done something in our heart, which is so much better than where we were. And eventually we're just not even interacting with it, or we're not even, we get assaulted. That will happen the rest of our lives. That's just a given. A more modern day version, which I think is a kick, is like someone knocks at the door. They're here to sell me something, and I know I don't need it. I don't want it. I'm not even curious. I don't need to see what's over there. And they keep on knocking, and I'm going to ignore till they go away. Ignore, ignore. Now, if I open that door and start interacting with the salesperson, we'll say from death, from addiction land, that's not a good idea. Not a good idea. Have I been sold anything yet? No. Have I consented to buy in my heart, where I actually haven't done the transaction? But no, I should just slam the door on the face of the person. And I don't need it. I don't want it. I've already bought it, and it never worked out. Never worked out. And I think this is a very useful tool that from a neurological point of view, the more you interact with thoughts, the more you are growing brain networks. There is something called Hebb's law, Hebbs, Hebb's law, that says what fires together wires together. So if networks are firing over and over and over, eventually they begin to wire together. And that's why addictions sometimes from a purely behavioral point of view are hard to break. But I think that they're also more hard to break because of a spiritual force, that I personally don't believe this is just a matter of us interacting with our own bodies and brain process and chemicals. I think a better understanding is that there's something spiritual going on. It makes sense why people who are afflicted with overeating, spending, gambling, you notice, we have gluttony, greed, pride addictions are like work addiction. We just can't stop. Lust is another of the passions. So you notice these are passions, okay? Alcoholism and drug probably fit under gluttony, dealing with their appetites. It's a daily struggle, but eventually it's not a struggle, because the more you surrender, the more you pray, the more we'll say the enemy isn't going to tempt you. If he keeps poking you with a stick, with this logisme, and you just surrender and pray, he pokes you with a stick, you surrender and pray, poke you with a stick, surrender and pray, and you keep on doing that. Eventually, he realizes all he is doing is sending you to prayer. Prayer and surrender is a really simple, important thing. So anyway, I love this tool. Does it work for other things? It does. I'll talk a little bit about it, even though we've been focusing on recovery from lust. Does it work with OCD? Exactly. This sounds like an OCD thought when we're afflicted, like, oh no, what if I hurt a baby? What if I have my hands not clean enough? What if this picture isn't straightened? Something bad will happen. I better, and think about it from a fear point of view. Oh no, I just feel like something's bad's going to happen if I drive. So then people are afflicted with these assaultive thoughts all the time. Let's look at it on the other side, on like the resentment scale of, why did they do that? That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem just. what's going on there, you know? And so then if we let this descend in our hearts, we're actually blocking God's power. Yeah. So there's temptations that are pleasurable, but there's also temptations that are fearful. And then there's temptations that, that would lead us to think we're better than other people. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this. Go ahead and leave comments. We appreciate comments because it's kind of more of an interaction. If you want to know more about my work, you can visit our website, ericbolin.net. Actually, ericbolin.com is probably a better one. I should change that. You're welcome to subscribe or like or whatever you want there. So anyway, you take care and have a great day of recovery.